Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. This week we have managed to get Shawn Ingle on. He isn't wearing his trademark red scrum cap that he wore all the way through the Rugby Europe Championships, but it's an honour to have him here, and it's a great opportunity to talk about grassroots rugby and Rugby Europe all at the same time. Because Shawn, for those that don't know, who do you play for in your normal club game? And obviously who you represent for Rugby Europe Championships, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Carl, for having me. It's great to be on the pod. I played for Maidenhead Rugby Club out here in Europe. Yeah, it's obviously been a pretty already with Simpson passing. Happy to be on the pod and keen to talk about grassroots rugby and everything about Rugby Europe.
Yeah, brilliant. So how did you end up at Maidenhead? Because it's obviously Will Greenwood's over there. He's obviously pretty well versed in England rugby. Are you local to Maidenhead, or did you sort of stumble upon it?
I'm not local there, so I kind of stumbled upon it. When I first moved over to the UK, I was studying a master's up at Cambridge University, and before that, I was at Melbourne, and my director of rugby had played for the Jetsons when he was playing in France professionally. And he said, when you go to the UK, you have to play sevens for the Jetsons. So when I went over here, I got in touch, and the head coach, Moxie, I sort of asked him when I was finishing up at my year of Cambridge, what's going on? We were just talking about rugby, and he said, why don't you just come down to Maidenhead and have a play? And that's how I joined the club, and I was starting a job here just in working, so I'm not actually that close to Maidenhead, but it's only a 40-minute drive up the road.
Yeah.
Just decided to lock it there. It's been a great experience.
So I'm guessing you're not originally an English native. Is that fair to say? Where'd you originally originate from then?
That is fair to say, yeah. I was born and bred in Joburg in South Africa.
Oh, okay. Nice. So when did you sort of make it across to English shores, and did you play much over in Joburg as well? Did you sort of learn your trade out there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely learned my trade up at Joburg. I was there for 18 years, so the whole way through my schooling career. So I played school rugby down in Joburg. I was at a fairly small rugby school, but we loved our rugby just like every school does basically in the country. And that's where I sort of played through the ranks. And after school, went to study in Australia. I was there for a couple of years, playing club rugby there and studying. And about 2.5-3 years ago now, I moved over to Spain. Been here since grade level.
Nice. So how did the call up for Germany come about then?
My grandfather's German, and
Right.
I've always sort of had a connection to Germany through him. I got a passport when I was in my teenage years, and then when I moved over to this side of the world, another friend of mine from Melbourne, basically, when he learned that I had a German passport, he said he knew the German sevens coach and told me that I should get in touch when I'm over. They usually sort of look a scout for decent players knocking about, and I got in touch with the German sevens guys, and they invited me over for a training camp, which was an awesome experience. And then that weekend we actually went. They were like, by the way, we've got a tournament in Zimbabwe this week. Do you want to hop on a train and join us? And I was studying at the time, so I had a sort of fairly flexible schedule. So Zimbabwe and played a sevens tournament with them, and it was just that was the beginning of the German rugby journey, and they've just been they opened their arms to me very welcomely.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing experience ever since.
So obviously it started with the sevens. How did you because a lot of people get tarnished once they've started sevens, and that's as far as they go. How did you manage to get into the 15 setup? Was it because of your club rugby at Maidenhead, or was it something that you'd naturally progressed into and wanted to put your hand up to as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in both codes of the game.
Yeah.
Played a lot more 15s growing up. Sevens was something that kind of played through autonomous little summer, and that was about it really. And even though the opportunity first arose with Germany through the sevens, the head coach got in touch with me fairly soon after I started playing sevens and asked me if I was interested. I said yes, definitely. But I just once again got invited to a training camp, and sort of the rest was history.
Yeah, brilliant. And obviously, this Rugby Europe Championships hasn't probably gone the way that you guys expected. obviously we kept in touch over the period, didn't we? And there was a few games that even I messaged you and thought that was it. It's time, the result's going to come. And what's your sort of debrief? What did you feel that went wrong in the tournament? Because it could have started so well. That first sort of 20 minutes in Romania was pretty much on point, wasn't it? And we kind of didn't see that again until the first 20 minutes of the Switzerland game.
Yeah. No, it's a tough one, and it definitely was a tough tournament. We in the last couple of years generally have done all right, sort of finishing sixth. And we're definitely expecting to do that or better. This year obviously was a pretty special one with the chance of qualifying for World Cup for teams that were up for it. So the boys are definitely up for it, and I think, like I said, we started really strong at that game. Romania. I just really struggled to put a full 80-minute performance in the whole tournament. Sort of were plagued by a few unfortunate injuries as well throughout the time, and we maybe just didn't have the 23 players that we needed to finish out games every week. So yeah, it was a real tough one for us. I think we definitely didn't perform as well as we wanted to as a unit, and I guess the results showed in that sense.
Yeah, because obviously I was covering the games, writing articles and stuff, and pretty much I don't think you had the same team sheet at any point throughout the tournament, did you? There was always at least a few changes consistently, and potentially locked you off your rhythm, as you said. Obviously, you had a blinding tournament, mate. To be honest, I couldn't wax more lyrical about how well you done throughout the tournament, and I think a lot of people would have probably put you in a team of the tournament from outside of the teams that had obviously got the results. What was your takeaways? Because it must have been really hard to try and keep yourself upbeat and confident within an environment that's wasn't quite getting there, and that you're obviously having to try and lift the lads and carry the lads around to a certain extent to push them. And how did you sort of enjoy your tournament, obviously apart from the results?
Yeah, I mean, apart from the results, obviously, which were tough, and at the end of the tournament, some of them were definitely sort of weighed a bit heavy on me that we, as a unit, hadn't done that well. But I had a great time. It was my first Rugby Europe Championship. First time. I played a few caps beforehand, but it was the first time I'd actually had sort of a solid campaign of international rugby week in and week out, and I just sort of felt like I thrived on the experience. I really enjoyed going to play at stadiums against international teams, and I think for me, playing here in Maidenhead is all good, but being able to test myself against sort of international level athletes and guys that had a really high caliber, for me, it was just a challenge that I think I relished. So yeah, it was a tough 6 weeks. The results didn't go for us, and it was a pretty grueling schedule, traveling back and forth from the UK, because I was still working full time during the process.
Oh, wow.
But even besides that, I was just sort of glad now to be playing international rugby and just sort of keep chopping at the bit for the opportunity. So for me, I was just sort of trying to do my best, and I felt like I played some decent rugby over the course of the tournaments and really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, well, obviously the tackle stats sort of backed up how well you done in the tournament. Obviously, probably having to defend a lot more helped, because there was probably a lot more coming at you. So, how did that work then? Obviously, if you were working and then you obviously had games, because it was the start of the tournament was like every week for the first 3 weeks, wasn't it? Then we had a 2 week gap, and then we had another 2 week gap. Were you sort of having to be released sort of a Thursday, Friday before a game, or was there a longer lead in, or was it a case of this is your work on, can you go and do this before you come to camp on this date, or how did that work out?
Yeah, so we normally had camp sort of starting on a Wednesday or Thursday, and a lot of the boys, because as a team we've got very few full-time pros, so a lot of the guys are all working as well, so we usually have training on sort of an evening on a Wednesday, Thursday type of thing, except for the first week where we had a full week preparation. We needed to get going for that. Usually I'd fly over from sort of my Wednesday or Thursday, and then we'd have evening training sessions throughout the day, luckily enough, my job allows me to work, so I was able to just work at mine. And then usually travel to wherever the country is on Friday, and then it's just all rugby from that point. So I had to obviously take a few days of it, which was fine to do. But yeah, typically then once Friday comes around, we're locked in, and it's all focus on rugby. And we had a few Sunday games, but gave us 2 days preparation before a Sunday fixture, and then fly back home on the Sunday night or the Monday, and then rinse everybody again.
Out of the games you went and played and the places you went and played in the tournament, what was your favourite? What was the one that stood out?
I think for me it was Portugal. I really enjoyed the Romania fixture, traveling away to Netherlands, but that Portuguese crowd in the stadium and just the experience of being in Lisbon for a game of rugby was really cool. There were a lot of people there.
Yeah.
It was just real noisy and just a cool experience. And even though we didn't play, we had a good 40, I think, once again. We didn't have the best results in that. I felt like that was one of my better performances of the tournament. Yeah. Being able to play against some boys that were at the World Cup and really stood out against themselves. Obviously, Nicholas Martins was my opposite man. Just being sure we play against the way like that was unreal. So I had a great time.
Yeah, and then there was obviously the 2 tries late on where they tried to play sort of jouet rugby as well, didn't they? And gave you a couple of points back.
Yeah.
But I had the pleasure of obviously going to the Iberian Derby, and the atmosphere, as you say, was different class. And I think sort of Portuguese rugby in that sense is a bit of an unearthed gem for how passionate they are as a group of fans. And as you say, they get together and it's they can make a fair bit of noise out of even a fairly empty stadium, because they're not quite massively full, because they pick the bigger ones. What was Friday Night Lights in Bucharest then? That must have been pretty impressive though. The first opening game of the tournament as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a pretty full stadium. So that was definitely a great experience for me. So I mean, that stadium is not the biggest, and it was fairly full on the day. That was a very much experience opening day of the 20. Running out there, it was like, wow, this is now we've come to play, and I think that got the juices going, and really it's just also once again an amazing experience.
Yeah, quality. We're gonna have to speak about that drop goal then, aren't we? Really, that was, I don't think anyone saw that coming. I don't think anyone thought Switzerland had that sort of drop goal in the bag, but what was the feeling after that went over?
Yeah, I've tried to put that deep in the recesses of my memory and get it out of there, to be honest. But that was, I think, the most sort of heartbroken I felt after a rugby game I've ever played.
Yeah.
Because it felt like we were in control for the whole thing, and then like it just got being snatched away from us at the last minute, and it felt pretty cruel. In reality, but yeah, so it was a low point for sure, and definitely something that I try to move on from.
Yeah, how does the team get together after that? How do you sort of process that as a team as well? Because it's, as you said, it's heartbreaking for one person, but as a group of lads that have gone through the whole tournament together or not together, obviously who was there, and then it ends in it was about the 83rd minute or 84th minute, and as you said, you were pretty much in control for 60 minutes of the game, but those little bits had crept back in and let them in. And how did you guys come away? Did you all go away and just have to sort of lock yourself in a room, kangaroo court style, and just try and drink yourself to back to normality, or was it you sort of had to go and try and do other normal conventional things that other outside rugby people do?
Yeah, more than that, I think. Obviously everyone was in the same boat as me, and super disappointed with it. And it's unfortunate because as the last game of the tournament, you sort of don't have a chance to rectify yourself until the next year. So there's a really big gap until we can really do anything about it as a group. But I think at the end of the day, we all sat together in the change room, had a chat about it, and reflected on the tournament and on how things didn't really go our way. And that was basically all we could do. I think everyone also ended up meeting up together at a pub and just sort of celebrate some of the small successes that we've been able to have over the tournament. Because even though it didn't all go our way, there's definitely things to grow on. And so a few boys made their first caps. A few boys really had good experiences through it. And I think the plan is to just try and take the hurt from this year and make them sort of work for us in the next season.
Because you had that young, is it Christopher Henning, the 10? He sort of made his bow, the second of the last game he sort of come in, and he looked pretty comfortable for, 20 years old, sort of straight into the deep end, pretty much on the back foot with you guys. And it looks like you guys have got a fairly solid core throughout. Obviously, Lil Wolf, yourself, and then obviously if Henning and you got, I can't pronounce his surname. The 15 that literally can kick it from the
Nikolai.
other side of the moon.
Yeah.
He's got one hell of a boot on him, and if you can get that all ticking together, there's no reason you can't go that and obviously rectify it next year. But next year is obviously the relegation battle, so there's gonna be the finals day supposedly. So all games are played on the last day. So there's a bigger sort of emphasis on next season with you guys to rectify it. But missing out on that World Cup opportunity as well it was quite disappointing, the tournament, at that sort of thing, because after the first two games the top 4 spots were already done. It was down to that 5th spot, wasn't it? And I think if some of the games have been sort of shuffled and maybe the top teams have played each other at the start, some of that result may have been a little bit different. Do you think that as well, that it kind of removed all jeopardy from the tournament?
Yeah, a little bit for sure. I think, maybe if like you said, the order had been changed, it could be a bit more exciting. I feel like usually there's obviously a lot to play for as you go into the final rounds, but it felt like the team that made it sort of obviously celebrated, and that was sort of job done, bags. But obviously for us, it was a very outside chance of making it into that fifth next playoff once we got to the sort of end of the group stages. So I think for the teams like obviously Belgium, the Netherlands, and ourselves, and Switzerland, maybe there was a bit more sort of still excitement to it and opportunity. And I think there was still hope and belief that that's something we pull out of the bag. We had one good performance to go our way and make our way into that sort of sphere. But yeah, just as it happened, it wasn't the case.
Yeah. So have you guys got any pre-season, summer tour? Have you got any games? Germany got any games in the summer at all to try and get your eye in ready for the next European Championships?
Yeah, last I heard that we hadn't been able to line anything up. I think we struggled a bit funding wise this last season. So I think we're hoping that something will come up, but at the moment I haven't heard of this point.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because Belgium weren't. So Belgium obviously got into the qualifying spot, didn't they? And they originally didn't have any summer tour lined up, so they had nothing to prepare them to go into the November qualifications. Yes. They ended up having a swap with Netherlands. The Netherlands have swapped so that they could go to the USA to at least get their eye in before. So these two nations having that opportunity to get a summer tour together and stuff, as you sort of touched on with funding, it makes it harder for you guys to create that team environment as well a little bit, do you think? Because as you said, you had to literally squeeze everything together in a week camp before the start of the tournament and then try and expect to get a result out of it. Because I was speaking to the Netherlands team as well after the Spain game, the first game of the tournament. They said, we've literally had a week together. We've had to come here and play Spain and we've had a week together. And then obviously they went and put a better performance in against obviously Georgia the week after, and then obviously did the demolition job on the Swiss. How hard is that? How's a coach as well? Obviously from a player's point of view, when you turn up to camp, how does a coach how does he try to convey his ideas into a week? Like you said, it's your first European Championships, first time you've pulled that shirt on in such a championship level. How do the coaches sort of try and convey that message in such a concise space without ruining the message at the same time?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I think I mean, it's something that we face, and obviously there's other countries in the league that have a similar problem. Those that struggle to get people in time. And yeah, with only a week to go, and people obviously coming from different teams that have different playing styles, and the whole name of the game is how to build the cohesion as possible. And I think one of the approaches our coaches have taken, particularly, and I can mainly speak for the forwards because that's where I'm playing, is kind of just kept the same sort of philosophy and playing style from previous years. So I mean, I made my debut against Hong Kong in 2022, and we still had a very similar. We've kept a similar game plan basically, and that at least creates a bit of continuity. Obviously, for lads that have never been in the setup, they've got to learn that from scratch in days, which is not the simplest thing. But I think trying to keep continuity and having the same people around year after year obviously makes a big difference. It's a slow build because you've got some little time together, and you've just got to try and make the most out of the time that you have. And often that sometimes means that you maybe would do more sessions that you might need to do normally. And I guess it's a balance between being physically driven and being actually, mentally across the game plan. So it's a tricky balance to get right.
Do they have a lot of stuff sort of out in WhatsApp groups or on little tablets saying this is the game plays, etc., etc.? Because I've spoke to a few coaches and that's how they try to convey their message. Like, at an international level, you literally got a WhatsApp group with all the forwards. This is your line out jumps. This is this. Is that an option that they utilise as well to try and get everyone together? Yeah,
that's pretty much it. Yeah, spot on. I think. Oh, really? The only way, other than we had quite a few sort of, I guess, sessions like Zoom meetings to get in touch with each other and chat through things a couple months beforehand. The prep started a few months beforehand, even though we weren't able to physically meet together as a full squad. There was a core group that met every Sunday and trained together for a few months beforehand. The ones that were obviously close enough to Heidelberg that could make it. And other than that, the WhatsApp group definitely served as a source of information for us to just get across all the game plans, the lineup, the set plays, everything.
There must have been a lot of pinned messages throughout that WhatsApp group just if you didn't keep losing all your line out plays. So obviously, when you went back to Maidenhead after your star-studded European Championship tour, how were the lads? Were they as the usual rugby lads, sort of making out you're an A-list celeb, sort of have a little bit of banter with you, or was it just back to normal business as usual? We've got to get on with this season. How did the season go as well?
Yeah, definitely a bit of banter thrown about, but wouldn't expect anything less. And it was all very good natured. Very good to be back. I think it was obviously a lot of the lads I'd missed being there, and they'd missed having me around, and I ended up not playing a whole lot for Maids this season just because of all the Germany stuff. I think I only got just over half the games in throughout the course of the season. Because obviously over that period, I think it was like 8 weeks of missing out. But it was, still great to be back with the club. And I think this season we pretty much hit almost all of our targets. We were kind of in the midfield where we were really hoping to be. I think last year we struggled and were battling for relegation towards the end of the season, and this year we weren't sort of even in a shout of that. So I think for us that was a good step forward, and brought in so many players, and as a squad just really grow. I think it's great to see. When I first joined Maidenhead a couple of seasons ago, we obviously had guys that were thrown into playing first grade rugby because we kind of had lost a bit of depth at that point, and now they're really making their names as sort of proper starting players and able to play at this level. So I think for me, as a sort of a slightly more senior player, because we've got a lot of young boys, even though I'm only 26, it's good to see the growth of the squad, and I think as a result it was a pretty successful season.
Solid. Did they obviously when you come back? Did they sort of lean on some of the international plays, or did they sort of make sure you didn't teach anyone if they dropped in the pocket to let them kick the drop goal sort of thing? Was that was there was certain plays they didn't let you guys sort of anywhere near?
No, we definitely. I think we've got our Maidenhead Rugby. Nothing changes basically.
Nice. So obviously, as you said, you also dabble with the rambling jesters for the sevens. Have you got much of a circuit plan for the summer to keep you busy, or is it sort of you trying to play catch up from your day job because of all the time you had off with the German side?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that. We signed up for Jesters signed up for a couple of sort of midweek tournaments this year, which I'm not going to be able to get to because of the fact that it would be during the workday. Obviously, the London City Sevens last week that you were at was one of those. It looked like a really close tournament. I was sad I missed out.
Phenomenal.
But obviously I got very limited leave and I want to actually have a bit of holiday this year, so I'm planning on saving that for some holidays. But yeah, so I'm actually not going to get too many run-outs for the Jesters. I missed a tournament, not this weekend, but the one before, because I've got a bit of a wrist injury that I'm still carrying from the Netherlands game, which I just needed to heal up for a few weeks. So this year, unfortunately, I'm not going to get too many for the Jesters in, but I definitely will get a couple run-outs for them. And very keen to get a few tournaments in.
Nice. So, as I said at the start, you did pretty much have your red scrum cap was pretty much your trademark signal throughout the tournament, and then in the last game, I think you had to donate it to, was it Lewis Ball or something, because he got a head injury, and then the commentator kept mixing you two up as well, which was quite funny because nobody realised it had changed, and you're both just trying to nail everything that come at you. How did that become? Is that something you've always had a red scrum cap? Is that just you thought that's the one, rather than trying to hide away from a ref? You're just going to try and make yourself look like a beacon and give him no option to only see you, or how did that one come about?
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, first of all, it's always a privilege to be switched around to Lewis Ball, so it's good that I got competed with him. He puts in some big hits for sure. A really good player. But
I think that's how his head got split open. That was why he was.
Yeah, absolutely. He absolutely made a massive shot on the. Well, he was obviously a big boy himself, and it was a huge bleed from miles away, and that's how the head split open. And obviously, had to get that taped up, but he wanted a bit of extra padding, so I donated my scrum cap to him. But yeah, I've always wanted a scrum cap growing up, so I was just probably something I've always done. And the couple of games that I haven't worn it, I still have my head split open as well. Just like tend to stick my head in a lot of dark places, covering over the ball, or making tackles, and whatnot. So I like to have a little bit of protection against a split skull. But I've had different colours over the year, white. But yeah, red's just the one that I've had for the last couple of years. It definitely helps when commentators are able to see the red scrum cap. Just for now, got even large feet games at Maidenhead. Mum and Dad watching over in South Africa, so they can see the red scrum cap. So it's easy to get spotted that way.
Nice. So obviously, as you said, Mum and Dad are back in South Africa. Have they managed to make it across to many games? Did they manage to sort of get it across to the Rugby Europe stuff, or is they planning for that next year? Are they? Or
they weren't able to get across this year. Yeah. So it's not something planned at time really. I didn't really think about it until too late, and it's obviously not the cheapest thing to get over this side of the world. So maybe we'll try and do that. But
yeah, it'd be nice.
It'd be really nice to. Yeah, I'd love for them to come watch me play an international rugby game. I think that would be a special moment. But
yeah, that'd be pretty epic. Imagine at finals day would probably be a good one. At least it's all the games are in one go and one spot for them to come to. So obviously, grassroots rugby. You've obviously been over here for a little while now. You've dabbled over in Australia. You've obviously been in South Africa. How does grassroots rugby compare between those three places? Obviously, over here, it's probably got one brand of rugby. You've got another brand in Australia. You've probably got another brand in South Africa. What's your comparisons of how the game is done in those three areas?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's lots of layers to that. And definitely as countries and playing styles, definitely find distinct differences between the three. Obviously, South Africa is traditionally known as sort of very much sort of kicking game, forwards dominated with big bodies around, and but at the international level. But I found that at like I said, schoolboy it was very much about sort of open running around rugby, and that was sort of my main experience there. Obviously, the schoolboy rugby scene in South Africa is just huge, and that's where all the kids play. It's not much club rugby going on there. So I think a lot of people either make it into sort of the varsity cup sides and play university, and then either in an academy and end up playing pro, or just kind of lose the rugby. It's not as strong a club game as you see, which is, I mean, maybe the strength and the depth of the club game here has been something remarkable. Obviously, there's so many clubs and so many people that just love to run around, no matter what level they're playing at. They just love to have a game of rugby. There's a very old club rugby culture here, which is pretty special in the UK. So I mean, that's a big difference I noticed between South Africa and the UK. And then in Australia, it was obviously rugby is, I think it's only the 6th or 7th biggest sport in the country there. So for a country that does pretty well at it, it's definitely not a popular thing, particularly where I was in Melbourne. I didn't know this at the time when I moved there, that it's not even that well known at all. So for me, the rugby experience in Melbourne was really interesting, because I moved over there expecting it to be this big thing, but it's actually a bit of a niche sport with quite a small rugby community, similar to what it might actually be in a lot of the tier 2 nations in Europe, actually. But as a result, it was a super close rugby community. Lots of people from outside, so the islands, South Africans, Irish, Kiwis playing it around there. It was just that was an amazing experience. And obviously the Aussies love to play a very open brand of rugby with a lot of brand rugby. And I found that particularly, I played one season with Shoot Shield for the Wildfires. I moved over to Sydney last season during COVID, and that was a very fast, open brand. Seriously high quality. The Melbourne comp, where I played most of my years there, was slightly slower, with bigger boys, lots of very, very large Islander lads running around. And that was the most physical comp I've ever played in. I think that's prepared me well for stepping up to the international stuff, where the guys are slightly bigger than obviously what we played in Maidenhead. But I've definitely faced it all before in Melbourne.
Yeah, I was about to ask that as well. So obviously, stepping from, a lot of people say there's a big gulf between club and international rugby. How did you? Obviously, you played international for a little while now. How did you find the gap when you first jumped in? Was it, well, actually, I'm here, I'm ready, I'm fine, or, well, fuck, I've actually got to do. I'm a little bit behind, or how did it kind of feel when that first game got in your bank?
I definitely noticed the gap. I at the time was playing university rugby with the Cambridge lads, and we had sort of a real mix in terms of like a lot of young boys that just come out of school and really done a whole lot from a rugby perspective, but were just talented lads. And then we had the guys of likes of Toby Flood and Matt Simmons running around about the Cambridge side as well. Tommy Costello, who played for Italy, I don't know how many times. So we had a bit of a mixed bag there, and I mean the quality of training and stuff was pretty good there. But then you go into the international level and things just step up a bit. And I mean, I played some decently high level games before that had prepared me well from a club rugby perspective. And I had a chance to play against the Japanese Wolfpack touring team when they toured Melbourne. I played for Melbourne Rising against them with obviously the Japanese squad was pretty stacked at the time, but we played with the likes of Sione Tuipulotu and Jordan Ulisi and Rob Leota were all in my team that day. Nice. And that was sort of my first taste of, wow, this is like really high-paced, really intense. This is what it's like to play at that level. But then when we ran out against that Hong Kong side that were a pretty good outfit at the time, was for my debut. It was another, like, oh my gosh, this has just hit me that it's just way faster. The collisions were big. There was just no room for error. You make one small mistake, or your technique's just slightly off, and you either get driven back 5 meters in the tackle, or you'll miss it. So it's definitely it was a bit of a shock. And at first it was like, well, I've been playing a little bit low. This is a step up, but then the sort of hunger comes in. I think I could be good enough to do this level, so I'm just going to relish the opportunity and give it a crack.
Yeah, brilliant. How long did it take you to then sort of feel, not I wouldn't say comfortable, but that you got yourself into a position that you knew what the game was and what you had your work-ons from? How long did that sort of take you? Like 5 games, 10 games? What's the usual time period that you thought?
Yeah, I mean, I've only played 8 caps now, actually.
Oh.
For Germany, because there was a bit of a period in the middle where I missed the Rugby Europe Championship last year, for example. So I played those first 2 games for Hong Kong, and there was a bit of a gap between this year.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, it was actually, I feel like you said, I wouldn't sound comfortable, but I feel like after that first cap in Hong Kong, we then played a second one the same week. I think it was 3 or 4 days later. We did 2 tests against each other. Then I kind of had convinced myself that I can sort of do it at this level. And then from there onwards, obviously there was work-ons I had to do, things I always knew on. But I think I'd given myself the confidence that I can have a go at that level. And then every time, obviously, play something slightly better than I played before, there's that kind of flicker of doubt, like how's this going to go? But I think it's just I've now got the have a crack at most steps.
Why did you miss out on the Rugby Europe Championships last season? Was it selection, or were you just unavailable? How did that cookie fall for you?
It was mostly a bit of an eligibility issue, because I, through my grandfather, do qualify to play for Germany, but there was an investigation by World Rugby. I think we'd maybe done some incorrect paperwork or something for one of the games, and maybe not followed the correct procedure in the eyes of World Rugby. So there was something that was opened up from their side, and it just took a really long time to go through the legal process to solve. And it did eventually get solved, and my name got cleared. But for a little while, I was under investigation.
So
yeah.
Glad you got your name cleared at least. So that definitely helps. So obviously that must have given you a little bit more of a hunger as well to think, actually, I really want to get back on this stage and prove after that investigation I'm actually here for a reason as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was a pretty frustrating period. I'd made my debut pretty recently, and that was an amazing tour, and keen to sort of build on that experience in the rec. The following February, and it came about that I wasn't able to play that year, so I missed out on a full year of international rugby. It was frustrating, and I was definitely built up a bit of a fire inside me to want to do well this season.
Nice. So as you said, you were over at the Cambridge Rugby as well. How did your time go there? Because you obviously we had James Shanahan on previously, so he'd have been the coach. So James Shanahan has been on the pod previously, and we were discussing recruitment of how that had to go, because he was just he said, I don't know what's turning up each year. He said sometimes we're going down with a clipboard down the halls just trying to sign up randomers that might look like rugby players. How did your time obviously under Shanna's go, and how did your time at Cambridge go when you were there? Did you manage to win the cup and everything as well, or?
Yeah, so we managed to win Boston, which was a pretty amazing experience doing. It was the last year I'd actually played it as well. Playing on the holy ground was pretty cool. People turned up, and was really good to get away, even though we did everything we could to try to do that. We had, like I said, we had a pretty star-studded team, and the Oxford lads did as a star-studded team, but we made a very difficult for ourselves in the day. But it was a phenomenal experience and a great party afterwards. yeah, the whole Cambridge rugby experience is just so unique and not like anything else I've ever come across. Because, like you said, it's just such a mixed bag, and you never know what's going to turn up. But just fortunate happened that we had a really good bunch of lads from all over the world rock up that year. So it was it was a great experience to meet so many different people from all over the place. The actual year, I think, which was unbelievable too. And the rugby club was a big part of being such a good time. It's just it's got a lot of history to it, and some really weird and archaic old traditions that happen. So it just was really unique and an incredible time.
Yeah, brilliant. Shannon was saying that there always seems to be a shortage of props as well, because not many people that go to Cambridge are usually got a shit diet and probably eating crap like the rest of us props. So it was. So you didn't get asked the question to suddenly jump in the front row then?
No, thankfully not. It's and that's also that's one of the unique things about it. I've never seen this before, where people get put on proper conversion programs when from the beginning of the season. You'll rock up in September, and a few people will be selected as you've got the opportunity to be a prop this year, and you might just play varsity if you go and drink 4 gallons of milk a day and put on 30 kilograms. You might be all right. And that was just bizarre. I know a couple of my mates ended up having to do that, and when and played varsity matches, that was cheap. So kudos to them for that. But yeah, putting on that much weight in a season, not the easiest thing to do. It's a big thing.
Nah. And still being able to move as well and play a game afterwards, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So by the sounds of it, you've also donned the pitch with a fair few of the elite game. Who's the best player you've ever had the opportunity to play with?
That's a good question. I think, it's interesting because, like I said, I haven't played with that many superstars, but I had a few cool experiences when I was in Australia, and that one game against the Japanese backside, we had a pretty decent side. At the time, we're actually guys that were in the Rebels development set up or were coming back from injury, but then went on to do pretty cool things. And I'd say, and I think the likes of Toby Flood would be sad at me saying it's not going to be him, because playing with him was also an amazing experience. But he was, and don't tell him I said it's maybe just slightly past his prime when he was at Cambridge. When playing with Sione took the last when I was in Melbourne, he at the time was, like I said, in the Rebels development squad, but always a very exciting player. And I played with both him and his brother at the time, and we always used to face up against each other in the Shield Melbourne competition. To see him then take off like a rocket ship when he moved to Scotland and then do so well for himself, was awesome.
Who's probably the best player that you've played with that's not made the level that they should have reached?
Interesting. That's a good question. I'd say at schoolboy level, I played with a couple of guys that came over from Zimbabwe and came to my school, which are really good lads and amazingly talented players. In particular, we had this one bloke on the wing, Shinji, who was, I don't know, like 10 flat, 100-meter runner, really big, strong guy, scored a million tries for us every year. And he went over to the States and dabbled in American football and the seven stuff there. And, I think he's still just having a good time playing rugby sevens around. But I definitely expected, I don't know if he was really serious about his rugby. He was just a much phenomenal. Pleasure running around school.
So, and obviously, some people have, I've asked that question to a few now, and a lot of people have said some people are just happy with what they've got in front of them. They've got no aspiration to go any further. They're happy with how they're playing rugby, and that they get to play rugby with their mates, and that's that. But some people look at them from outside in, and you think you could have gone like beyond and on and on. So that's quite interesting. That. What's the plan then? Obviously, Maidenhead, as you said, you're 26. Is there any plans to try and make rugby professionally, or is that something that you obviously you're happy with your job role at the minute? We're not trying to stitch you up to your bosses and everything like that, but is that something that you've always wondered? Is that call going to come now that you've got international rugby under your belt? Is it on that CV? You think maybe it's a revelation? Has anyone called it, and you're going to call it out now and say, "Yeah, I've been approached"? Or
look, I don't think I'll ever close the door completely, but I'm pretty satisfied with where I'm at the moment in terms of the work I'm doing. I feel like I'm really enjoying that, and being able to play international rugby for me is scratching itch. As a youngster and like growing up, even 2-3 years ago, I was the number one aim and aspiration for me was to try and see how far I could go with rugby. I would have loved to have played some professional rugby, and that was it was definitely a major goal of mine. But I feel like I'm fairly satisfied. I think if the opportunity came knocking, I would definitely grab it. I think because it's still something I think would be amazing to do. But I think where I'm at with things, I'm really enjoying my rugby. Being able to play for Germany for me, like I said, has really been an amazing experience, and something that has it's something I never thought I'd do, is play international rugby, and being able to do that for Germany, it's just been made a big bucket list tip.
Yeah, it's pretty epic to, as you say, just fly out, play in the Rugby Europe Championships, fly back in, go play for Maidenhead, play that level as well, and obviously what your parents being able to watch you on live stream at the minute, hopefully live next season after sort of the setback of whether you were eligible or not, etc. as well is just a testament to what grassroots and tier 2 rugby seems to be at the minute. You get a setback 1 minute, and next minute you've played a full tournament as well. So, what's your personal aspirations then for Germany, for obviously for the next European Championships? Have you guys already sort of discussed where you expect to put yourselves back to? Is there a target that you guys are already aspiring to as well?
I think as a unit we haven't sort of targeted a specific position, but I think as a general consensus we'd obviously love to do better this year. I think for me and for Germany in general, I think there's a lot of potential as a country. Obviously, it's a strong country, a lot of sporting history, and rugby's not the biggest sport around, but those that do like their rugby, they're really very passionate and are a great community. So I'd love to see the game bigger than as a national team. It obviously helps if we're doing fairly well for the game for everyone in the community. So yeah, we're definitely targeting the middle of the Rugby Europe Championship pack, and we'll see how far we can climb. But yeah, we'd love to do definitely this year.
Because the sevens are doing pretty well. They just managed to sort of get through on the next, because obviously that's all just been reshuffled as well. Because World Rugby don't like making anything easy or anything possible for people to understand for too long. So they've managed to get promoted to is it Division 2 of the Sevens Super Series or whatever it's been called now. So that's pretty an epic step up as well. There's a big aspirations I met a few of them as well at the London City Sevens, because they put the women's and the men's into the same tournament, and they didn't look out of water at all. They looked really impressive. They looked pretty well drilled, and yeah, that is a lot of the tier 2 nations are also sort of banking on sevens being a development ground a little bit. And do you think that's where Germany sort of targeting as well at the minute, while they sort of restructure the 15s to an extent?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome to see the sevens done so well. It's been it's been several years now in the past, I'd say 5 or 6 years, they were knocking on the door of the World Series and just always lost that one last relegation playoff or promotion playoff. And it's great to see that they've finally been able to win one, and I'm really happy to see all the boys going to be, knocking around in that Sevens Division 2, and I think it makes the experience for them. And I also like to see when we send our squad to tournaments around the UK and elsewhere in Europe to build up the talent, because there's some really exciting players coming through that hopefully might even make the switch over and come into the big teams from a background perspective. But yeah, I think that it definitely is it's to be that way for other countries, South Africa, Box, and the Bees, and how some of them have gone on to be All Blacks. It's a proven model, and they can work that way quite well. So it's great to see that it's doing well. It would be great to see if some of those guys can also go on and do fairly well in the 15 setup too. So I think it's quite an exciting space to watch, and really happy to see that we're doing fairly well in this space.
Shawn, I think we've pretty much covered most of it, and I'm sure we could probably continue for a lot longer. Hopefully we can get to actually meet in person at the next Rugby Europe Championships. I know there was hopeful that it was going to happen this year, but didn't quite work out for it. But Shawn, I just want to say thank you for coming on, mate, and obviously highlighting the Tier 2 nations as well, the Rugby Europe Championships, your journey, and obviously Maidenhead Rugby Club, where they've been and where you've been. As it's, by the sounds of it, you've got a pretty epic story, and we've managed to cover it, and I really appreciate you coming on, mate, as well.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks so much for having me. It's been
So, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you really enjoyed Shawn's story through Rugby Europe Championships, obviously Maidenheads, Australia, South Africa, Cambridge Rugby. I think we've pretty much covered everything as well. So I know this one has managed to jump up the list because I fucked up the recording from the Rugby Roots episode. So this is now going to jump forward a little bit, and now next week we are actually going to do the Rugby Roots episode. So for those that have wanted to subscribe, follow, like, comment, do all of that, so you can make sure you keep up to date with all our current guests, episodes, and everything like that. And thank you for joining us. Cheers and goodbye.